Welcome to the August meeting of the Dallas branch of ASCE. I'd like to extend a welcome to all of our members and guests. I hope you've had a chance to watch some or all of the sessions of the joint meeting. They were all really great. Thanks to y'all, we raised $2,340 for the North Texas Food Bank. That provided 7,020 meals for hungry children, families, and seniors in our community. We know at this time lots of people are relying on the food bank, and we wanted to make a difference with our joint meeting this year. I also want to thank all of those who helped put the joint meeting together. A huge thank you goes out to Chad Ostrander, who recorded and edited all the content and got it posted on our YouTube channel. I know it took a large effort, and we could not have done any of the virtual branch meetings without Chad. I'm constantly amazed by all the talents that we have within the branch. If you want to do more than attend the meetings or have ideas on how we can better our branch, we'd love to have you help us plan what we can accomplish as a branch this year by joining our team. The nominations are out for the board and committee positions for the 2020 through 2021 year. See the website for the application. Nomination forms for the committee and institute positions shall be completed and emailed by Friday, August 28th. I wanted to let you know the passing of ASCE, or past ASCE Dallas branch president, author Fritz Beck. He was a Dallas branch president from 1971 to 1972 and one of the founders of BSM Consulting Engineers in 1984. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all of his family, coworkers, and friends. We know he was also an adjunct professor at SMU. The Dallas branch is considering starting both the Architectural Engineering Institute, AEI, and Utility Engineering and Surveying Institute, UESI, in the Dallas branch. If you're interested in helping start either of those institutes, please let us know at info@dallasasce.org. I'll now turn it over to our committee chairs for the announcements, and then I'll be back about the main speaker. After the main speaker, I'll cover about getting your PDH certificate.
Hi, this is Amanda Coif. I'm one of the social media co-chairs for the ASCE Dallas branch. I have a couple of updates on what's been going on with our social media this month. First of all, if you're not following us yet, I've put our social media handles on this slide so you can find us. We are at ASCE Dallas on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we're ASCE Dallas branch on LinkedIn. The reason to follow us is you'll get the most up-to-date information on what's going on in our branch. We post updates on our monthly meetings, upcoming events, and a lot of other fun stuff, including our latest #Visit ASCE Landmarks campaign. To celebrate ASCE's history and heritage, we're posting pictures that y'all have sent us with your favorite ASCE landmarks. We'll be posting them every Thursday. And if you want your favorite landmark or just a landmark that you visited and you thought was really cool featured, you can send us your pictures by DMing us on any of our social media platforms, or you can email us at socialmedia@ascedallas.org. Just send us your landmark and a brief reason why you like it. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing your submissions.
Hi, I'm Ozzy Gonzalez, our branch's fundraising chair. I would like to take a moment to ask you to consider becoming a branch sponsor. We still have sponsorship opportunities available at all the branch levels. If you are interested, please visit our website at dallasasce.org or email me at fundraising@dallasasce.org. It's because of this engineering community's generosity that we are able to keep going. We greatly appreciate all your support.
Hi, this is Patrick Williams from the board of the ASCE Dallas branch, wanting to briefly give a quick snapshot of the benefits of being a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers. If you are already a member, some of this may be a reminder of why you should continue to renew, and if you are considering joining as a brand new member, hopefully this will inspire you to do so. The first thing that I can attest to is how ASCE can help turbocharge your career. We're using this term to describe how you can build your professional skills with over 250 on-demand webinars at your disposal, including 10 free PDHs each year. There is an online portal designated as Career by Design that assists our younger members to navigate the licensure process, innovation occurring in the industry, and much more. Secondly, the networking that takes place on the global, national, state, and local branch level is invaluable. Your connections to peers in civil engineering can arise from the ASCE Mentor Match program, participation in the technical divisions and technical institutes, and just staying connected to news and announcements via the Texas section and branch social media platforms. For insights and resources, being an ASCE member provides you access to the Civil Engineering Salary Report, free access to the Access Engineering Calculator, graphs, tables, and data tools, as well as exclusive self-teaching videos. You get the Civil Engineering magazine throughout the year, the new Plot Points podcast series, Institute, e-newsletters, and much more. Last but not least, there are financial discounts and perks that go along with your membership, including but not limited to special rates for auto, home, life, and health insurance, 0.5% student loan refinancing rate discounts, $100 rebates on personal loans, and major discounts on travel, entertainment, technology products, appliances, and more. We ask you to reach out to us with any questions and visit the asce.org/member-benefits link for much more detail on benefits of being a member. We ask you to forward this information along to your colleagues as we continue to thrive towards ASCE's mission statement, which is to provide essential value to its members and partners, advance civil engineering, and serve the public good. Thank you.
If you have any comments or questions during the presentation, you can type them into the chat at the right of the presentation. For today's presentation, we have Brian Barth to present on TxDOT's Transportation Program 2020. Brian serves as Director of Project Planning and Development, responsible for overseeing the transportation planning and programming, right-of-way, environmental affairs, and professional engineering, procurement, and transportation program divisions. A member of the TxDOT family since 1988, Brian began his career as engineering assistant in the Dallas district after graduation from the University of Texas at Austin with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. In 2003, Brian was appointed as the Dallas District Director of Transportation Planning and Development. From 2009 to 13, he served as the Fort Worth District's Deputy District Engineer, providing joint oversight and development of the DFW Connector, North Tarrant Express, I-35, I-30, and Chisholm Trail Parkway. He was appointed as Fort Worth District Engineer in November 2013 and served on the Regional Transportation Council of the North Central Texas Council of Governments, working to solve Metroplex area transportation issues. Under Barth's direction as District Engineer, he also oversaw over $1 billion in construction work each year, in addition to major projects on I-35, State Highway 360 South, and I-30 State Highway 360 interchange. He has also been a strong advocate for TxDOT employees by providing the needed training and career development, improving working conditions, fighting for additional merit budget. I'll now turn it over to Brian to give us an update for TxDOT.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. What I'd like to do is go through our transportation program for 2020 leading into 2021. And so let's just dive right into it. So the first thing to mention is we're going through the process right now of getting our 2021 UTP approved. We anticipate that approval happening at our August commission meeting. But one thing that's come up is, there is a difference in our funding availability from the 2021 UTP versus our 2020 UTP. And so this chart shows those differences. And, right now that difference is about $3.5 billion difference. Our 2021 10-year program is $3.5 billion less than our 2020 10-year program. And the next slide shows what those differences are. And so on the left of this, the left chart on this slide shows those differences. And the first one is a good difference because that's essentially we've been able to accelerate projects and take advantage of a good cash flow situation and build more projects. So that first row, the 2.2 billion, is just a reflection of that accelerating projects. The next row is TERP reductions, the Texas Emission Reduction Plan. The TERP program was planned to be expired or ended by August of 2020. It was set to expire, and so we didn't include that reduction, taking money out of the state highway fund for those the TERP transfers in the 2020 forecast. But the legislature last session extended that program, so now we do need to deduct those payments or transfers to the TERP program, and that's essentially 1.3 billion. And probably I should state that all of this is pre-pandemic. This is based on a 10-year revenue forecast that we get every year in the October-November timeframe. So this is based on that forecast that was done in November 2019. The next row is we expected to get additional Prop 1 proceeds that were higher than what was in the 2020 UTP. So that's a positive. But then the legislature a few sessions ago for Prop 7 deducted some of Prop 7 to pay our general revenue debt service. So in the past, we had a couple debt programs. One was a debt program based on borrowing money from our state highway fund. The other program was a debt program that was general revenue, so it was actually additional money to transportation. But a few sessions ago, the legislature took some of the Prop 7 proceeds to pay off some of that general revenue debt, and they continued that this last session. And so now, 2 sessions in a row, in fact, I think it might be 3 sessions in a row now, that becomes a trend. And so we're deducting that amount for this next biennium. And that's that 4.3 deduction. So the first 2 rows and the 4th row are the main reasons that the revenue forecast for the 2021 10-year period is 3.5 billion less than the 2020 UTP 10-year period. And just a reminder for everybody, the Prop 1 was enacted a few sessions ago by the legislature and then voted on by the citizens of Texas, and that's to take a portion of the oil and gas severance tax that was going into the rainy day fund and diverting that into the transportation fund. And then the Proposition 7 was the following session. The legislature enacted that, and voters again voted on the constitutional amendment to take a portion of sales tax and devote that to transportation, and then later a portion of the vehicle sales tax and devote that to transportation. And so those were 2 additional funding sources. And just to give you an idea of the impact that those 2 additional funding sources were to transportation, prior to those 2 propositions passing, our 10-year UTP was on the order of 31 billion, and now it's on the order of 77 billion. So it was a huge benefit to transportation in this state. So then just a little bit about how we develop projects in our overall portfolio. And this, you're going to see a series of these funnel depictions. And this is if you know our chief engineer, our Bill Hale funnel, and it depicts how we develop projects. And really it's wider at the out years and narrower at the time of construction. And that just shows that we need to have a good mix of projects being developed throughout, passing through the funnel, so that we can take advantage of the available cash flow. And you really need to have more projects being developed than you can afford, because projects get delayed for whatever reason, like environmental or other reasons, and you want to be able to have a good mix of projects available to take advantage of that cash flow. So this first funnel is a depiction of a project manager in an area office, or say in a design section. So they're managing a number of projects, taking them through the funnel. The area office has a bigger portfolio that So those project managers portfolios build into the area office portfolio, which builds into the district portfolio, and then into the statewide portfolio. And you can kind of see the number of projects and the dollar amounts that we're talking about. Those are general numbers, but you can see how that builds up into our statewide program. And again, we want to have more projects being developed and a good diversity of different types of projects being developed so that when it comes time to take advantage of cash flow, we've got plenty of projects there to let. And then this is a similar depiction, but it kind of shows how our rural, urban, and metro districts all build towards the statewide portfolio. And then you can see a better depiction of on the right there, a better depiction of the funnel and the stage gates. We've got the first stage gate is our strategic initiatives, statewide broad strategic initiatives that our commission sets. And right now those are congestion, mobility, safety, and preservation of the system. And then that second stage gate is when the projects move into the Unified Transportation Program in one of those 12 funding categories. And then you can see the stage gate of letting and into construction. And so what's that look like for our 2020 statewide lighting? This is what it looks like. And the purple is what our planned lighting looked like probably a year before, so early 2019 when we were planning the 2020 lighting schedule. The blue is what the current planned lighting is, and then the green is what actually let. And so let me move something so I can see it. So you can see for every month that's passed, we've got a green actual letting amount, and really the difference between the green and the blue for any month is essentially the difference between the engineer's estimate and the low bid amounts. And then we've got the August letting happening this week. But you can see we had some relatively low months in January, February, March, and April, although what we're trying to eliminate is the peaks and valleys on this annual letting schedule. We want to keep a roughly between $500 and $600 million lettings so that the industry knows what to expect and can plan their resources and bid the projects competitively. And we don't want too many projects in any one letting, because then that'll limit competition, because there's just so much capacity that the industry can bid upon. And so our goal is to level this around the $500 to $600 million a month range. And we're doing a lot better than we used to. We used to have a big spike in July and August, and there's still a spike there in the summer months, but it's not as big as it used to be. And so then here you can see just what that looks like on the cumulative for the year. And again, we don't have an actual letting yet for August. That happens this week, but it's tracking pretty good with what we had planned. And this is just the makeup of what makes up a fiscal year letting total. Our goal is this year to have $7.7 billion in lettings. We actually had this number a little bit higher a few months ago, but that was because we had higher July and August lettings, and we wanted to promote competition to lower those July and August monthly lettings. And so there were a few projects that were moved into fiscal year 2021 to accomplish that. But you can see our statewide lettings, which total about $6.23 billion. That's our statewide lettings where contractors bid on a statewide basis. We have local lettings where because of MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization's placing federal money on projects in cities or counties or regional mobility authorities that they choose to deliver themselves, they still require federal oversight, which we provide. But those are our local lettings, and that's about $436 million. We didn't have any design build procurements, although I do think we will, because we plan to execute our Oak Hill Parkway project in Austin before the end of the fiscal year, so we will be adding that to the total. And then there's other obligations, air quality studies, public transportation, that total $411 million. But that's how you make up the roughly $7 billion in annual letting. And then what does that look like in mix of projects for our statewide letting? A lot of folks kind of focus on the big projects that we have, but the majority of our projects are smaller projects, less than $15 million a piece. And so we have a whole bunch of those across the state. But you can see the mix there. And we are actively trying to increase the number of larger projects that we have, although we've done a pretty good job of that lately. There is an appetite in the industry for these larger projects, and really even larger than the 50 million. We're hearing that the industry has an appetite for projects within maybe the $100 to $300 million range. And so we will have some of those coming out soon. And then here's the same, on the left is the same chart that I showed earlier, but we're also then showing right now what our projected 2021 lettings look like. And that isn't fully populated yet. We are waiting on the next forecast, which will come out this October and November, which will allow us to fully fill out that 2021 letting schedule. But right now it's just shy of $5 billion, and I expect it to be up over or close to $6 billion, just like 2020. And then here's what that looks like on a bar chart per month. If you'll take a look at September of 20 in the green, when that was originally planned, we had a whole bunch of projects sitting in September waiting to either move into fiscal year 2020 earlier than August, or spread out over 2021. And so you can see in the blue that that's happened to a good extent. So then let's move into what's that mean for our consultant procurements. Just a reminder, our PEPS division handles procurements for professional services across the state. And here's kind of the geographical structure of the PEPS division. You don't have time to read all of that, but it's on the PEPS division website, and I assume these slides will be available for reference later. But here's our annual procurement numbers for our professional services. You can see fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20, we're both up about the 1.5 billion in procurements. That has grown steadily since the PEPS division was created in 2013. And then just an idea of what our 2020 procurement plan was. A lot of this has been carried out, but you can see the different types of contracts that were in the 2020 procurement plan, and you can see that $1.5 billion plan. And then moving forward, we've got the fiscal year 2021 plan procurements, or at least the planning has started. I suspect that that number will rise some, but probably not get to the $1.5 billion range that 2020 was. But again, you can see the type of contracts that we're going to be procuring in fiscal year 2021. CE&I, PS&E, and schematic environmental are the big needs. And so, we can't accomplish a program the size that we now have without help from the industry. And we value that partnership with industry very much. And it's we're all in this together, and that's why we're able to deliver this big program. Just wanted to mention a few things from May of 2019. We did do some rule changes concerning our professional services contracts. We added into the rules bonus policy requirements, and essentially what that did was made it very clear to everybody that bonuses that are paid by consultants to their employees, if they meet certain requirements, are eligible expenses in these contracts. So we think that was a good thing. We clarified the rules that the overhead rate to be used will be the overhead rate at the time of negotiations. We've had that question come up that sometimes the overhead rate changes from the time of negotiations to execution or even towards work authorizations, and we've clarified that the overhead rate is the rate in effect at the time of negotiations. We did a 90-day extension of administrative qualifications, and this was really geared towards reducing the number of disqualifications because firms were late in submitting their administrative qualifications to get their new overhead rate. So what this does is if you got it in last minute but within the deadline, it takes some time for us to review it, but you'll get a 90-day extension of your previous overhead rate, so you're not DQ'd. You can still compete for some of these contracts. And then we've moved to annual negotiation of labor rates, and instead of with a particular firm, instead of negotiating labor rates for every contract that the firm gets, we're going to do that once a year with that firm and then apply those rates to the contracts that the firm gets over the year. And so we think this reduces the workload on the industry a lot, but it definitely reduces the workload internally in our PEPS division, reduces those negotiations from thousands and thousands during a year down to hundreds during the year. So we believe that was a positive for both the industry and our in-house folks. And then just some things we're looking at for moving forward is, one, we went through a pilot process with the annual rate negotiations, and we're ready to roll that out statewide. We've been working on the electronic submittal rollout so that our consultants aren't delivering a big bunch of paper every time there's a procurement. We're looking at working on a statewide policy for profit negotiation and a statewide policy for escalation consideration. And the main reason we want to do this is just get some consistency around the state, and so the consultant industry understands and knows what the expectations are on both of those two topics. We're moving to a one proposal format. We've had a different type of procurements, and sometimes it was a difference in federal rules versus state rules, and We've been successful in getting those two types of procurements to be very similar. And so now we're just going with the one format where it's a proposal. We're changing the project manager nomenclature. Instead of having the firms have to name a project manager at the time of the procurement, especially on an indefinite delivery contract, that project manager can now be named at the time of the work authorization, which speeds things up and doesn't, it causes less problems, because at the time of if you do it at the time of the contract execution, by the time you're doing a work authorization, sometimes that project manager has moved on. So we're just doing it at the time of the work authorization. And the last thing is the project team composition form. We were having way too many disqualifications because the PTC form didn't match the proposal. And so, again, we were all for competition, and we don't want to limit anybody's opportunity to compete for these projects. So we're removing task leader names from the PTC form, and so it should be a lot simpler, and we shouldn't be having DQs because of this reason going forward. The other thing that I'll just mention real quick, many of you probably saw a memo from Martin Roden at the beginning of the pandemic, just laying out ways and things we were doing to keep PEPS projects going, to keep our consultant projects moving, and keep our procurements going through this pandemic. And we've essentially moved everything to virtual, and by all accounts, it's working as well or maybe even better than before. And a lot of these things that we've moved to be virtual, we will probably continue once this pandemic ends, because it's been more efficient and easier to schedule, easier to accomplish, less travel. There's just been a lot of benefits in keeping the program going. And first of all, I appreciate that the governor has deemed our business essential, and so we've been able to keep our consultant projects moving, and we've been able to keep our construction projects moving. And in some regards, we've been able to speed up construction because of the lower traffic numbers. We've been able to keep construction, especially in our metro areas, out on the road for longer periods of time, not having to pick them up for peak hour operations. So there's been some benefit from the pandemic to our construction program. And here's just more of that memo that Martin sent out and some of the things we're doing to keep things moving during the pandemic and keep everything that we can virtual. So that's my presentation, and I'm available for questions if anybody has any questions about any of that or any other related topic regarding the Texas Department of Transportation.
Hey, Brian, this is Carlos Balderrama. I just want to thank you for speaking to us today. It's been a great presentation and definitely interesting learning about the plan for 2021. My question is, you mentioned in your presentation TxDOT is considering potentially having some projects, even greater than the $15 million range. I was wondering if you could give us some insight as to maybe what type of work that might be, and if pursuing one of those might be a little different than your typical contract.
Yeah, so let me be clear. It's construction contracts above the $50 million amount, and so that traditionally, our big projects were 100 million, 150 million, and we'd have a few of those across the state a year. I think we're in the environment that we're in, and a lot of our projects being in very congested areas, it's very difficult to, in some cases, break up projects to be that small. So we're actually looking at bigger projects in the $200 to $300 million range, and then even much bigger in our design build program. It's not unusual to have a $1 billion design build project, and we're working towards a big one in Houston that's going to be close to $4 billion. And how we accomplish that and how we work with industry to make sure that those contracts are right when you have a project of that amount and that the risks are allocated correctly. And so that's what I was speaking of. We have had some bigger consultant fee contracts, and a lot of those are some of these big corridors that we're designing. It just makes sense to do the work with one team instead of breaking it up into a number of teams. Some of those have been in the $20 and $30 million engineering fee type contracts. So I don't know if I answered your question. That was my attempt.
No, you got it. Thank you.
You spoke about the one design build project. Are there other design build projects on the forefront?
Yeah, so I spoke about the Oak Hill Parkway in Austin. We've got a couple of procurements that are ongoing right now. One is the I-35 Northeast Extension project in San Antonio. That is under procurement now, and we should be awarding a contract in the summer of 2021. And then we've got the Southeast Connector project in Fort Worth. That is just started the procurement, and we should be awarding that sometime in fiscal year 2022. And then I mentioned the big Houston project on I-45 downtown. That's in the procurement project. We expect that to be a longer procurement because of its size. That's the one that's close to $4 billion in value. We're actually looking at whether there's a way to split that up into smaller pieces, mainly because of the challenges for the industry on getting surety backing. The sureties are, the dollar amount is definitely a concern to the sureties. But what we found out is that the duration of the project is even more of a concern, and they're really having trouble with a 7 or 8 year project being exposed for that long of a period. So we're actually working with the industry and working with the surety industry to see if there's options on how to deliver those bigger projects. But it is kind of a new world when you get to a project of that size. The challenge on some of these projects like that one, and then maybe the one in Austin on 35, the Capital Express project, is because of the geometry of the proposed projects. It's very difficult to split them up because there's, if you're going depressed, there's no way to kind of daylight it back to existing in the middle of a project. So it's very difficult to split up sometimes.
Ryan, thanks again for coming to speak to us. I was wondering if you all have held any virtual public meetings, and how have those gone? Have there been some challenges to them? Or?
So we've actually held many virtual public meetings since the pandemic started, and then we've actually held a few virtual public hearings since the pandemic has started. Now the FHWA is requiring an in-person option when you do a public hearing, but we've been able to limit that to an appointment only at a TxDOT office to try to limit exposure during this pandemic. But in most accounts, the public involvement process seems to be working better in this virtual environment. We seem to get better participation, more participation virtually. And I think it's mainly because it's easier for people they don't have to travel somewhere to go to a public meeting. They can into their den and get on their computer and get on the virtual public meeting. But our experience has been is we've had very good response, very good public involvement, and probably a lot more involvement from the public on these projects. The concern by FHWA is just if we could be leaving out certain populations that don't have access to the internet if we do the public hearing part all virtual. So we are offering an in-person option, very controlled, limited in-person option on the public hearings through the NEPA process. But we've also done virtual public hearings outside of the NEPA area, like our UTP, our Unified Transportation Program public hearing was done all virtual. In our long-range transportation plan public hearing is being done all virtual. That's in a week or two now for the next long-range plan. So we've had good success, and my thoughts are we'll probably do more of that even after the pandemic because of the success we've had doing it.
Ryan, this is Nancy Klein. I was going to thank you and also ask you about the future Riverside building replacement in Austin and the plans for that. And do you see that the plans might change any based on the current working conditions, and will it affect how TxDOT does work in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question, Nancy. So we are building a new Austin campus building, and it's geared towards consolidating our campuses around the Austin areas for mainly our division offices. So the new location is down southeast Austin off Stastny, fairly close to the Austin Bergstrom Airport. That the construction has started. We got initial approval 2 sessions ago and final approval last session to move forward with that construction. So that construction is happening. And the idea is to consolidate our Riverside campus, our Camp Hubbard campus, and the Cedar Park materials lab all in one location in Southeast Austin. Now, we were kind of sizing that building and the offices based on moving forward with what we're calling alternative work strategies. And so we were already planning towards more teleworking, more remote work, more hoteling, if you're familiar with that term, where you have some office space that's designated for people to get online and just reserve and able to come in and have the space only when they need it. And so we were already working towards kind of a smaller footprint based on some of these alternative work strategies. And we were trying a lot of these out internally already, piloting them, but by moving in that direction where our current offices are. But I think what the pandemic has done is, one, it shows us that that's going to work. Some of us were skeptical that that was going to work, and I think it's very clear that that can easily work, because I think we've removed all obstacles to teleworking and remote working. We've proven over this pandemic that people are very productive teleworking or remote working, and in some cases more productive, because you take some of the stresses out of the workplace, like travel stresses and congestion stresses, and so we've been more, in some cases, much more productive teleworking. So I think going forward, I think you're going to see a lot more teleworking, and I think the pandemic has kind of forced us to get the technology up to to par, so the teleworking is much easier. My fear is, when before the pandemic, when say the majority of folks were in the office and some people were joining a meeting virtually, the virtual attendees sometimes got ignored or weren't as prominent in the meeting as they could have been or should have been. And I think what this pandemic has done is shown that we need to use the technology to make sure that we can hold these meetings and virtually, and that it's important. I think it's important to do these meetings like we're doing now, where you can see people's faces, and it's like we're all in the same room right now. So I think that this pandemic is going to make us more efficient in that regard, and moving forward, I think you'll see more teleworking and more remote working. And just my personal experience, I actually live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and before the pandemic, I was traveling every weekend to Austin, lived in Austin during the week and in the Metroplex during the weekend. And after the kind of the success of virtual working and remote working during the pandemic, I think I'll be doing less of that, because I've been just as effective sitting at home on a computer, although I go blind by the end of the day, so it is important to get up and walk around every once in a while. But I think you'll see changes like that, where office space will be less, or personal office space will be less important moving forward.
So Brian, I have one more question that you made me think of is, how will people's work habits affect traffic patterns possibly? And what do you see, that's kind of more of a vague question, but what do you see for Dallas-Fort Worth for future big projects? I know 635 east of Central is going underway, and a lot of 35 down through Oak Cliff. What other, Fort Worth has a lot of projects, what do you see as the next generation possibly?
Well, so on the Dallas side, the next phase of the 35E project between LBJ and Denton is under procurement now. We essentially built phase one and opened it a year and a half, 2 years ago, and now we're working towards the phase two of that project. There's plans for the I-30 corridor, one in the Canyon area, south of downtown Dallas, and then taking it from there out to basically the TxDOT office, heading east through the Fair Park area. There's and then further there's a work planned at the lake bridges across Lake Ray Hubbard on I-30, essentially getting those frontage roads built across the lake to add capacity and to add some kind of resiliency to the corridor when there's incidents out there. There's another big corridor that the Dallas District is working on is a 380 corridor in Collin and Denton County, but mainly right there in the McKinney area. There's the big Diamond interchange that is getting ready to be, the construction is going to start at the old Texas Stadium site. We've got a littler project under construction now, building an overpass across 114, but the rest of that kind of three-legged interchange is going to be under construction very soon. And then at some point, we got to figure out how to deliver the next phase of the Midtown Express or Airport Freeway, because the Fort Worth side, with the concessionaire having to add capacity based on revenue triggers, we're going to have a bottleneck at the county line, and we need to solve that before that happens. Then in the Fort Worth side, I mentioned the Southeast Connector. That's the big interchange at I-20, 820, and 287 in Southeast Tarrant County. That project's moving forward. I mentioned that the North Tarrant Express concessionaire has some requirements to add capacity based on revenue triggers. That's moving forward. So there'll be additional general purpose lane in each direction on the east-west segment of 820 from 35 over to 121. And then from there east, there'll be an additional toll managed lane in each direction added. And that's a requirement of that contract. That concessionaire has to build those at no cost to the state. And the original plan was that they had to build those by the 2030 milestone, but because of revenue triggers, they're going to have to do it earlier. There is some work planned on I-20 between Arlington and then out towards the west, towards Weatherford, but that section of I-20 between Arlington and say 35W. Part of that's going to be expanded with the Southeast Connector, but outside the limits of that contract, you need additional capacity also on I-20. So many things in the Metroplex. If you follow the Regional Transportation Council meetings, there's a proposed pilot to do a Hyperloop pilot. And that's basically near DFW Airport, south along 360. There's the proposed plan to do a high-speed rail connection between Dallas and Fort Worth to line up with a potential high-speed rail from Houston to Dallas. So a lot happening. Good question.
This is James from WSB. Thank you for your presentation. Couple of questions. One, in light of this pandemic, I know before pandemic there was a big push from TxDOT on industry, Texas. I still think there is. Has anything improved? Hopefully on the statistics side it has, but has anything changed on the end of the street, Texas? And the second question I had on the procurement side, I've been hearing that instead of emailing your proposals now, you're going to be able to upload it to a portal. Is that in the works, or are y'all testing it out, or how's that going?
Yeah, let me answer the second question first. So yes, that is in the works. The electronic submittal. I would say it's been slowed down a little bit, not because of the pandemic, but if you're reading the news, back in May, we were hit by a ransomware attack, and that has slowed down some of that IT development a little bit while they focused on making sure we were secure in that regard. But that is moving forward, and it's moving forward with not only for consultant contract procurements, but other procurements, even outside engineering. And so we hope to have a more robust system where there's a portal to handle all of those different types of procurements. And then the industry, the commission has really challenged us to eliminate deaths on Texas roadways by 2050 and to get halfway there by 2035. We were, and they devoted some funding in the Unified Transportation Program to that end, and some of those projects have already let, and a lot of them are letting within the next year. We expect to see some improvements on end of the street stats because of that. And we were we were showing good trends, that we were lowering those numbers prior to the pandemic. And so we were really hopeful that with lower traffic numbers during the pandemic that we might get a day where we didn't have a death on Texas roadways. Unfortunately, that has not occurred. In fact, the trend has gone the other direction. We believe that because of the lower traffic and less congestion, that people are not paying attention to speed limits, and the kind of the average daily rate of fatalities on Texas roadways has gone up during the pandemic, and that's just terrible news. And we're trying to get the message out that you still need to drive to conditions, you still need to follow the speed limit, you still need to pay attention, you still need to not drive distracted, you still need to not drive drunk, and but we're seeing those trends go the wrong way, unfortunately, during the pandemic. We were very hopeful that we'd end that streak. And just the other day, we got to the point where we're 100 days away from that anniversary, the last deathless day. It's November 7th, and we haven't ended the streak yet. So we all need to work together to work towards that.
Brian, we want to thank you for being willing to speak to us today. It was great to get an update on TxDOT and see what's happening in the DFW Metroplex. If you have any additional questions you want to ask our speaker today, please put those in the comments section, and we'll send those to him and get you the responses. This month, there will not be any Institute technical seminars. Next month's meeting will be another virtual meeting. Keep watching your email and Dallas branch social media for updates. The meeting is scheduled for September 14th. You should see a link below the presentation in the description, which will take you to a Google form. This is how we'll know who to send a PDH certificate to. On the form, there's a code that you need to type in to receive the certificate. The code is TxDOT. If you have any trouble, please let us know at info@dallasasce.org or our social media platforms. The link will remain active till the end of August. Again, the code is TxDOT. I couldn't do this on my own. It's a team effort, so thanks to all who helped put this meeting on. Thanks for attending the virtual Dallas branch meeting, and I hope you have a great week. With that, I'll join the meeting. Thanks for joining us.